You know, David, I know that you are busy with Easter Sunday morning, but if you watched any of the media blitz this morning, if you were playing a drinking game, like one of those people who
I
are
wouldn't
insisting
be here right now.
one of the people that are insisting needing Monday off after Easter, if you're playing a drinking game, how many times you heard Van Hollen say, put up or shut up this morning, you certainly wouldn't be able to be here right now. The reality is, this really is all about the media stunt, right? Look, I get it. Elections are won by strong slogans and really just getting their face out there, especially in today's age. But is this anything really more than just a media blitz by an attempt from a weakened Democratic Party?
Yeah, to a degree, elections are won by slogans and narrative and media blitzes, but things have changed. And that's one thing. The electorate has now changed because of the desired outcome. Safety, in this case, matters. Fact is, it is a media blitz and a farce by the Democrats, but the facts are what win Americans over. One, let's clear up a couple of things. This, whether he was deported, whether there was a mistake or not, the fact is it was called a withholding. That is what was on him, was a withholding. Unless conditions change. The conditions in El Salvador changed with MS-13. Therefore, the withholding conditions changed. And now that there's a terrorist designation of MS-13, that also changes because, as immigration judges said, two of them, he's a member of MS-13. Confidential informants are very carefully monitored, ICE officials as well. So that has been clearly established, which debunks for the American people and those who want the facts this false narrative. And notice that Chris Van Hollen has to shift to Trump because that's all they have. They have to make a boogeyman out of this, not a boogeyman out of the bad man, and like his fellow criminals who are raping, murdering, robbing, beating, committing crimes, trafficking in human beings, or, as alleged, beating his wife. By the way, the allegation came from his wife, not from a neighbor. So there's a lot here. Let the Democrats keep going down this path.
Well, one of the big things that we saw today was that question of, is he associated with MS-13? You had DNC Vice Chair David Hogg, who is insisting that he is not a member of MS-13. Take a listen.
This was not an MS-13 gang member, and you damn well know that.
Oh, come on.
He was not.
Okay,
and
so keep defending this guy. You're just
administration admitted this was wrong.
He's here illegally. The Intel community, every Intel community agency and the White House say he is a member of MS-13.
Hey, right.
You know, meanwhile, Lydia, President Trump held up a picture showing the apparent tattoos that on his knuckles that are associated with MS-13. The DOJ has reports saying he was associated with MS-13. We have the restraining order, as David is pointing out, from his wife that essentially saying he's violent and not really a nice guy. But then I want to put up this list of Democrats who actually still want to visit El Salvador for this guy. Can we just take a list of that? Yeah, Cory Booker right there, my senator from New Jersey. God bless him. He's going to go down to El Salvador because he wants to bring this guy home. Again, as I mentioned last night, Eden Alexander, a 20-year-old from New Jersey, from Tenafly High School, who's still being held hostage by Hamas. Is Cory Booker doing anything in Gaza to try and bring him home? Absolutely not. But this is the cross that the Democrats want to die on. And I don't really understand. I do understand that there's an argument for due process. But why are the Democrats so strong on this particular case?
They're really grasping at straws. You know, what I think really is unfolding here are kind of two tracks, the legal track and the political track. And I just want to say first, whenever you hear the Democrats start cursing, I think that immediately that's like a sign that they really know
it's a weak argument if you're having to do that. If you're having to
resort to the four-letter words to emphasize your point, that's something that my mom always taught me. You can probably think of a better word right there. But I want to respond to what you said, David Webb, because I think you made such a great point. But I see it a little bit differently about the due process and the withholding order. All the issues that you laid out that kind of undermine the fact that this withholding order was still in place, the fact that maybe he could have been deported, but he shouldn't have gone to El Salvador, the fact that the gang was no longer in El Salvador, the fact that he was now designated as a terrorist organization by Senator Marco Rubio, all extremely valid points. But as a lawyer, I would have to point out those are points that would need to be made before a court, and it would be up to the court to decide whether or not Abrego Garcia could be deported back to El Salvador or somewhere else.
When he was deported, he was a criminal national security threat. So they deported him. Then the court said, well, you have to facilitate his return. At that point, he's an El Salvadoran citizen in the hands of his own government. Now he's their problem.
But Lydia makes a good point. This should be made in front of the courts, not on social media.
No, well,
Right.
Not necessarily.
And that's kind of what my point is. I think that the Democrats, they're not wrong. But I think in the hearts and minds of American people, they're looking at what the Trump administration is trying to do by making our country safer, and that's going to be the winning argument that everyone relates to. And I would also say this about the Democrats actually going down to El Salvador to grandstand outside of the prison and parade around and demand his release or whatever what point they're trying to make. It's a losing argument. We have to remember Abrego Garcia has a lawyer of his own that is fighting this due process issue, and that's really where this is all going to be decided.
Funded by taxpayers.
Funded by taxpayers, yes, you're right. So I would just ignore what the Democrats are doing.
Well, in true Democratic fashion, they're taking it to liberal media to make the Kilmar Abrego Garcia story all about identity politics. They tend to do that.
That is why this is so important, because if they could do it to them, they will do it to any of us. And to be very clear, it's going to be the people of color and vulnerable communities that are next in line.
But it's starting to actually use them as proxies to see how much the American people are going to fight back.
And not to be outdone, Texas Democrat Jasmine Crockett couldn't pass up a chance to use Abrego Garcia to trash Trump.
Now they're trying to double back and say, well, he's this terrible person and all this kind of stuff. But here's the reality. As far as I'm concerned, he's a lot less criminal than the person that's sitting in the White House.
Yeah. So, well, first of all, David, I can't take Jasmine Crockett serious. Anything she says. She put out a post this week because all she can do is bash whatever's going on in the White House. So if Trump does something, RFK Jr., she actually came out in response to RFK Jr. this week saying that autism is not a diagnosis or not a disease. I'm like, okay, she's just gone off the rocker. And here she is again. She has to weigh in on this.
Yeah, look, she weighs in because she feels the need. Nobody should listen because she's basically factless. That's what it is, factless, and frankly, feckless as a representative for her district. She's not taking on issues that matter to Americans. She's doing things that get her clicks and likes on social media. She's basically AOC.
Trying to be the new AOC.
Yeah, I mean, one's on the oligarchy tour, and the other one's the oligarch in training. I mean, I wonder how much she'll be worth in a few years, like many of these other members of Congress. I do, however, have to go back to something we were discussing, and I love our debates here. Once you have a designation as a foreign terrorist organization and you are a foreign national, the supremacy of the executive takes precedent. And the withholding also has conditions that if conditions change, which is a withholding order, then it goes to the next level. This is the issue. And they can talk about the mistake, they can talk about what it was called, but the facts are that in this case, foreign terrorist organizations and their members fall under the executive branch of the United States government.
And just so I can jump in here for a second, because I have to pick up on Jasmine Crockett. This is not about race. This is about criminality. And if you talk to people in the Hispanic community, in the black community, they will look, they voted overwhelmingly for Donald Trump. Why? Because if anyone deals with criminal elements like this and gangs, it's people in those poorer communities. They don't want these people in their communities.
They're the victims.
They're the victims.
Raymond, I really want to get your opinion on this because other people who also love to jump in when no one really cares about their opinion. Tim Walz's daughter, Hope Walz, decided to post on TikTok a video comparing Kilmar Abrego Garcia to the one and only Jesus.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.